My name is Megan Lengel. I'm the Chief Academic Officer at Colby Academy. And why don't we go ahead and get started with prayer? In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thy intercession was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, I fly unto thee, O Virgin of Virgins, my mother. To thee do I come, before thee I stand, sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not my petitions, but in thy mercy hear and answer me. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. All right, well, I have with me today several of our directors. I have Nicole O'Connor, who is our elementary online learning director. I have Tony Gazaldo, who is our middle and high school online learning director. And then also with us is Everett Byarski, who is our director of academic services. And we are going to kick it off with him.
Thank you so much, Megan. So I have the opportunity to start talking a little bit about what does it mean to be attending Colby Academy? What is a Colby education all about? And really, since the very beginning of Colby Academy, since our very founding, our three pillars have been our Catholic identity, our classical curriculum, and our Ignatian pedagogy. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what some of those things mean here at Colby Academy. Starting off with classical education, when we're talking about classical education, we're taking a look at what are the aims of classical education and what is the content of classical education in particular. And so for classical education, the aims are wisdom, virtue, and pursuit of truth. It's ordered towards freedom, remembering that freedom is the freedom to choose the good. And then the liberal arts are, again, liberal being tied to freedom, are the arts that help one grow towards freedom. And so the liberal arts are the trivium, the 3 ways, and the quadrivium, the 4 ways. The trivium is grammar, logic, and rhetoric, which aren't stages of learning, but they're actual subjects. And each subject also has its own grammar and logic and rhetoric. So math has a grammar, the facts of grammar. It also has a logic and organizational structure, and it has a rhetoric that is specific to it, which is a means of expression. So we are focusing on the arts of the trivium of grammar, logic, and rhetoric, as well as the quadrivium, which is arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. And here, for the Greeks, arithmetic is number itself, the study of number. Geometry is the study of number in space, so spatial orientation. Music is the study of number in time. And then astronomy combines those to be number in both time and space. And so these are courses. We have courses in all of these subjects throughout our curriculum relative to appropriate stages of development for your students. With regards to Ignatian pedagogy, this is drawn from the Ratio Studiorum of Saint Ignatius of Loyola, the method and studies that he was using to form initially Jesuit priests, but then expanded to forming others. And so there are 3 primary aims of Ignatian education that we are focused on: self-activity, mastery, and formation. Self-activity is the goal that your students will be able to progressively grow in the ability to be self-motivated, to be self-driven in their education and in their learning, because that is one of our goals, is to form them as learners, that they will be able to take charge of their own education over a course of time. Obviously, what that looks like is different for a 3rd grader and a 7th grader and 11th grader. And so we'll be working to kind of progressively work them through those stages. Additionally, mastery is one of the keys. We're looking for them to both self-mastery as well as mastery of the content that they'll be learning. And primarily what we're looking at is formation. Our goal is to be forming students, again, in the wisdom and the virtue and the truth that you saw in classical education, that they're going to be oriented towards those things. And of course, the fullness of truth is found in God, and that is their ultimate orientation, because their ultimate goal is heaven. Some of the specific elements and methods that we are using within Ignatian pedagogy. So we have prelection, imitation, emulation, repetition, memory work, written and oral expression, and out-of-class work. And so these are some of the specific elements that you're going to be encountering in your students' education this year in your online classes. So the prelection is very specific to Ignatian pedagogy. It's used as the preparation for study. It should provide an inspiration and a motivation for students. It should also give them guidance in how they will go about learning the material that's going to be covered in support of self-activity, and it provides clear expectations for how mastery will be assessed. Both imitation and emulation deal with learning based on comparison and competition. Imitation specifically deals with learning that's done based on demonstration of mastery, in which the student will imitate what is demonstrated by someone who's at a different level than them, a teacher, a coach, a master of the specific technique, or of course, or even the great books themselves, the great works of a specific subject of literature, of history, and students will be studying those in imitation. In comparison to imitation, where the learning is in comparison to the work of someone at a higher level, emulation is done in comparison to or competition with some of the students' own level, whether they're their peers or even their themselves. Just as imitation and emulation share key similarities, so too do the next pair, repetition and memory work. Repetitio est mater studiorum is a favorite saying of the Jesuits, certainly of Father Spitzer, where I attended Gonzaga University when he was the president. He would often say that repetition is the mother of learning. Repetition is the repeated exposure, practice, and study of the knowledge and skills that students are expected to develop and acquire through the course of study. So this is going to be happening through a variety of modes of learning, through different types of assignments, through different means of assessing your students, each that will be specific to the grade level that your students are in. In contrast, when we talk about memorization, we're talking about what many would call, again, memory work. That memorization is the process of forming and developing the faculty of the memory. Again, we have the faculties of the soul, and one of those faculties is the faculty of the memory that provides a storehouse of words, phrases, significant facts, beautiful ideas, images, sense of rhythm and style. All of these things within the memory are the building blocks of thought and of expressing thought, of communication. Our goal is to form and develop that faculty, which, following in the footsteps of St. Augustine, St. Ignatius sees as central to both the spiritual and the intellectual lives, because memory is at the foundation of both thought and expression. Memory is essential to our idea of self, and our imagination is limited by what is in our memory. So your students will be exposed and working to really imbibe and take in some of these great ideas and images and beauty, so they can become a part of the memory, so they will be available as future building blocks for expression. And that's the next step is expression, written and oral expression. This is one of the fundamental goals of education for St. Ignatius. His objective is what the Jesuits referred to as the eloquentia perfecta, the perfect eloquence, which is an eloquence that unites knowledge, wisdom, and virtue in service of the good. Expression is both a means of growing in mastery and the means by which mastery is best assessed. Expression will include both the thoughts and ideas that are being communicated, the content, as well as the method and style used for communication, the form. Opportunities for both oral and written instruction will be plentiful throughout our grade levels and will be both formal and informal. Students will have both formative assessments in expression, those focused on helping the student to grow in mastery, as well as assignments or assessments that are summative, those that are focused on assessing the student's mastery. And within all of this, especially obviously within our online program, which has a series of courses that do not meet every single day, we have a heavy emphasis on the balance between both in-class work and out-of-class work. And we've tried to be very intentional in designing those experiences that your students will be working through, both within the class and outside of the class, because the work that's done outside of the class is just as important and sometimes more important than the work that's occurring within the live class time. One of our other keys of the philosophy of education at Colby Academy is the principle of subsidiarity. The principle of subsidiarity comes out of Catholic social teaching, and it was first defined by Pope Pius XI as stating that a higher entity in the social order may not do for the lower order what it's capable of doing for itself. What this means with regards to education is the concept that the parents are the primary educators of their children. And this is a fundamental right of parents, is to be the primary educators. As the primary educators of your children is that you have both the right and the duty to make decisions about what is going to be best for your child. So you could choose a route that is pure homeschooling, where you are actively involved in every aspect of your child's education. Or you can choose to delegate portions of that authority to people who you believe will be a good fit in partnering with you as parents. which is what we are looking to do here at Kolbe Academy, is to be partners with you as parents in the process of educating your children. And so within our live courses, you have the ability to partner with us. We have teachers who will be able to provide instruction, who will provide academic support, who can provide grading assistance throughout this, while keeping in mind that parents still retain those primary rights as the educators of their children. And if at any time you feel that you're looking for some additional ability to kind of have additional control over your education, that's something that you can coordinate with your advisors as to what program is the best fit for you. But so we're looking to, but really the key within our online courses, unlike many schools which view themselves as the primary educators of the children, for us it is always a matter of parent partnership. And so our expectation is that we will be partnering alongside you, working alongside of you in support of your students. Okay, with that, I will go ahead and pass things off. I believe next up we have Mr. Gazaldo.
Hello, everyone. My name's Tony Gazaldo, and I'm the director for 6 through 12 online. So I'm like the vice principal, excuse me, for grades 6 through 12. I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of policy changes that we've made in the last year, partly in response to our looking inward at our practices and evaluating them according to the Ignatian approach to education. So we've been taking very, very seriously in the last, I would say, 6 months or so, how we want to kind of revive our Ignatian education at Kolbe. Excuse me. And so we've had so much growth over the last few years that we've gone from a teaching staff that was, I think, a couple of dozen teachers up to we have something like 80 teachers just in grades 6 through 12 right now. So that's kind of what prompted this introspection. So one of the major policy changes that we undertook after a period of investigating and reflecting upon our practices is that we did away with having participation points in our live classes. And we've heard from a number of parents who have inquired about what prompted that change. So we thought it'd be worthwhile discussing here. And the first answer is that it stems from our investigation of self-activity and trying to reflect upon the ways that we foster or inhibit self-activity with our practices. And the adoption of participation points was early in the online program, and it served a really important purpose when it was adopted. But I think over time, the practice became less valuable, I would say, to its original intended purpose. And what we discovered when we were investigating practices across all of our teachers who kind of explained to us how they were doing participation point stuff, is that we were kind of using points as an incentive or as a stick in a way to encourage students to participate in their live class. And what we want with self-activity is for students to be self-motivated. We want them to be taking responsibility for their learning and to participate in class because that's what they ought to do, not because they're trying to earn points or avoid having points deducted. And I think what we're trying to do right now is move from a participation mindset where we are wanting students to merely say something on the microphone or in chat or just participate in that way to intellectual engagement. So we really want our students to be engaging the subject matter intellectually, of course, to interact with their teacher and other students and whatever activities that the teacher lays out for them. But really what we want is for them to be engaging the subject matter with their minds. And then the last thing I would say about this is that I think what we're trying to do is avoid a transactional view of education. So unfortunately, in many corners of modern education, students, and I would say many parents too, have come to understand education as being or consisting of a transaction between the student and the teacher, where the student does something, completes something, submits it to the teacher, and then the teacher, the transactional part is that the teacher returns the thing in the form of points. So that's the transactional nature. And that's not really something that at Kolbe that we want to support. We actually want to try to work against that understanding of education and move more towards an understanding where education is about formation, and then it comes through the student's own self-activity. In short, doing the things that the teacher has laid out for the student to do in order to move toward mastery. So those are two very different views of education, and we're trying to encourage our students to see things in the latter view. Okay, next slide, please. So another policy, this isn't really a change to policy, it's more of an update, a new practice that we are adopting this year. And this is also related to our reflection on Ignatian education, and that is the task list. So the principle of education that Mr. Byarski referenced earlier about pre-lection, giving students a preview of the course of study for a given unit of study or given module, or however you want to think of it, being that is a critical part of the Ignatian approach. What we found is that in the Schoology courses, practices by teachers varied. So if you're asking the question of like, how do students know what they're supposed to do every week? The answer to that question varied by teacher. So we have some teachers who do a great job of explaining that in live class. Others do an excellent job of having things available in the folders. Most often, though, what we found is that students had to go to multiple locations in the Schoology course. And when I say students, it also means their parents had to go to multiple places in the Schoology course to figure out what it is the student is supposed to be doing that week. And that is, first of all, time consuming and inefficient, especially for our families that have multiple students who are taking full loads of Kolbe courses. That's a lot of courses to have to be digging around to figure out what students are to be doing. But also, we always wanted students to have a clear roadmap for what it is they're supposed to be doing within a given module. So that's why we adopted this task list. So what you'll be seeing in every one of the courses for grades 6 through 12 is what you see on the screen here, which is just a series of tasks that the students are supposed to complete. And that will be visible on the course page. So right when you click into the course, that week's tasks will appear there, and it should be pretty easy for parents and students to identify what needs to be done. And then, of course, you need to open the folder to find the details on what it is it's supposed to be done. But at least you can see the overview or the upshot on the home screen. And I will say too that you'll see this in 6 through 12 courses, because in grades K through 5, the WAG is used. So that weekly guide to all the things that need to be done for the week is provided in K through 5. And actually, that was kind of the inspiration for 6 through 12. So props to K5 for giving 6 through 12 inspiration. Okay, I think that's my portion. So I'm not sure who I'm handing it back to. Is it Nicole? Okay, so Nicole, I'm going to hand it to her, and she's going to continue with this discussion of student support programming. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Tony. As Megan mentioned before, I'm Nicole O'Connor. I'm the director of the online elementary program. And so today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some new additions to our school this year that we're very excited to be able to offer. So as has been mentioned, our school has grown immensely in the last 10 years. We have so many more teachers, students, and with that, we've noticed a need for more support for our students. So students come to us from all different learning backgrounds with special needs or just some content area struggles. And so this year we have added a whole student support programming that we can offer for our families. So we have instructional support services, which are open to all enrolled students. These are things like writing labs, math labs, tutoring, subject-specific tutoring, or accountability. So accountability mentorship is someone who can check in with your child once or twice a week, make sure they're on track with their assignments. Just make sure, everything as far as Kolbe's expectations and deadlines are understood and met. But we also have special education services for students with diagnosed learning disabilities or struggles that need to be addressed in a different way. So we have resource labs that are available to students with special needs. We also have those tutoring and accountability opportunities for the special needs students. And then we also have, sorry, lost my train of thought. We also have accommodations for the online students. So in the context of their online classes, there are accommodations that we can provide to help the learning become more accessible to those students as well. All right. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in addition to our student support programming, which you can sign up for when you enroll in Kolbe, we also have amazing family advisors. Every family at Kolbe gets assigned a family advisor. These advisors are a wonderful resource for your family as far as, before you enroll, placement and advice, which online classes would be best for your child, what kind of course load would work best. They are great for answering questions about the curricula, maybe discussing what you've used in the past and what would be a good transition for your child. They also provide counseling for high school and college planning, and then just general support for homeschooling parents. A lot of our advisors are homeschooling parents themselves. They have a lot of knowledge on how even, as something as simple as setting up your home workspace or setting up routines. A lot of them have experience and are happy to discuss and help your onboarding and your school year go smoothly. All right. Next, we have an extensive help center for our families at Kolbe Academy. So if you're looking for further information, first we have a parent handbook, which you can find linked on the front page of our website. This is where you'll find all of our policies for the online classroom, for our school, for academics, also the academic requirements for those of you with high school students who need to start worrying about credits and transferring and all of that. You'll find all that in our parent handbook, and then any rules and regulations about internet usage or webcam usage, things like that can be found in the parent handbook. Also, the parent portal is where you will find your schedules. So your course schedule is on there. You can order a student ID on the parent portal, sign up for clubs. We have wonderful clubs. We'll talk about those in a moment. Any course changes that need to take place can happen in the parent portal as well. And then last, but certainly not least, we have a help center. If you have a question about tech or about some specific aspect of Kolbe Academy, if you search in our help center, there's likely an article on it that can provide screenshots and walk you through what you need to do. So the help center has categories such as academics, advising, admissions. There's a back to school article for anything you need to know to get the year started. So these three places are your friend, but also your advisor can help navigate and get you to these places if you need further support. All right. So in addition to those various academic supports, family support that I was just discussing, one aspect of Kolbe Academy that you'll hear us talk about a lot is formation. And without wisdom and virtue go hand in hand. We don't want one without the other. So as we seek to help your children grow in wisdom, we also are helping them grow as virtuous students. And so one way we seek to do this as a school is through virtue challenges each month. So we have a wonderful priest, Father Archer, who every month puts out a video for our students. It's for the whole family. We hope parents will join as well. And it highlights what virtue we are focusing on as a school for the month. And then it goes into a challenge. How can we grow in this virtue? What can we do to further our work on this virtue for the month? And so you'll see we send out a liturgical living email to all of our Kolbe families every month, and that'll go over some ways to engage further in the virtue and the liturgical activities and season for the month. And then also you'll see that video attached. So we encourage you as well as your students to watch these videos every month, pray with us, and help us as a school grow in virtue. All right. And last but certainly not least, and then I'll hand it back over to Mrs. Langle, is the family support. So I mentioned your advisor can help you discuss what a great learning setup or a learning environment setup is. We understand everyone's situation is different. We have different family sizes, different home spaces, all of that. This slide is more just to encourage you to be mindful, because we always have, the odd situation where you accidentally say something, your child's unmuted, you didn't intend for it to be heard by everyone. So we just want to remind all of our families, try and find a quiet space suitable for studying for your child. Keep distractions away as much as you can. It's a great idea to just at least periodically check in with your child to make sure they're staying on task. You can, if you're not right there with them, maybe check their browser history during live class or things like that to make sure they were engaged. For those little ones, make sure you're in arm's reach if they have some tech issues that need some support. And then lastly, set aside some time to follow up with your child. Schoology has a wonderful report that Mrs. Langle will show you in a moment. There's places that your teacher will leave comments and notes for you to check. So having a scheduled time with your family where you can go over those things, go over assignments or feedback, can really, really impact your child's success at Colby.
Nicole, thank you. Before you go, you had a very good question that I think is particular to K-5 that I thought maybe you could answer. It is,
Sure.
would you like me to read it? It is, we are new to Colby this year in K-5. What does the teacher-parent partnership look like in practicality? Does it mean that parents help with homework, their PAs or their CFUs? Is there a means in which the teacher shares the lessons that will be discussed in the week for the parents to build upon beyond just the quarterly goals that the teacher shares?
That is a great question. Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. So first and foremost, every Friday, your child's teacher is going to email that week at a glance document. That's going to give you as the parent the preview of all their subject matter for the week. So what they're learning, what their goals are, what the themes are. So that way, if you desire to extend upon that, talk about things at the dinner table, match what they're learning in religion to what you're discussing in your home, you have that opportunity through knowing what's ahead. As far as the distinctions of assignments, PAs, we call those practice assignments, but also parent assisted. So those PA assignments are a really great opportunity for you to engage further in your child's learning. So you have the opportunity to do some assignments orally. You can question, you can do the religion questions at the dinner table as a family and do them orally instead for those practice assignments, engage further that way. The CFU assignments, which are check for understanding, those are the assignments we really want your child to be working towards doing independently. That's the teacher checking their mastery, checking their understanding. But those PAs and reading and other assignments, we want the parents involved in those as much as possible. The teachers, depending on the grade level that your children are in, we have the recordings posted. They'll post some further resources or materials for you to engage in as a family. But if you're interested in extending upon a lesson, never hesitate to reach out to your child's teacher. They are happy to share anything they have with you, especially if there's an area that you see your child struggling or needing further support or an area of interest. My child got really into science in 3rd grade at Colby. And so I was constantly trying to find new ways to do more experiments at home or try and think of some virtual field trips that we could do together. So the teachers are a great resource for that as well. Also, we have some articles in the orientation course that are titled Self-Activity in grades 3 through 5, which kind of dictate levels of parent partnership per grade and ways that you can partner with the teacher. So if you haven't located those yet, those are a great start. Otherwise, your teacher can get that to you as well. All right. Thank you. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to you, Megan. She's going to give an amazing tour of Schoology so you can see other ways that you can stay connected and partner with your teachers.
And yes, Nicole, since you mentioned the orientation course for 3 through 5, if you want to find me the direct link to that course and throw it in our chat box, I can show that to them at the end of my presentation. Hi, everyone. I'm back. I'm going to show you some of the practicalities of just navigating Schoology. I'm going to share my screen and kind of go through some things. Somebody asked a really good question about how they have a new 6th grader and they are learning to navigate Schoology. You have to go to all the pages and kind of see what's going on. But there are some ways where Schoology centralizes that for you in 6 through 12. Our K through 5 students have the luxury of, they have several less teachers. They usually only have about 2, maybe 3 teachers if they're taking Latin or something. And so those teachers can work together to put the scope of the week out for that student. But in 6 through 12, our students get to pick their classes and times and schedules and teachers and all those things. So there's a million different permutations and combinations of teachers and classes that our students can take. So, but Schoology does a good job of kind of putting that all together. Hopefully by now you have figured out how to log into Schoology. Before I start sharing my screen, I wanted to point out 2 things. There are 2 different URLs that Schoology uses. One is for students, and that's colby.schoology.com. So for students to turn in things, that is the URL that they should go to. Your parent account, which will link to all of your children. So I have 3 children at Colby right now, and I can see all of them under my parent account, you're going to log in at the website app.schoology.com. So I just kind of wanted to put that front and center. Everett, I don't know if you have to stop sharing your screen. I'll just go ahead and share it. Hopefully it'll overrun it. Let's see here. Okay. All right, so hopefully you guys can see my screen there. Okay. So Nicole mentioned earlier a couple of websites that would be helpful just as resources for you all. So I wanted to just show those really quick. So this is Kolbe's main homepage. On the bottom right here is the chat button. You may already be familiar with it. But this is where you can go and chat with somebody live in tech support. We do have live support while classes are in session, so that if ever a teacher gets kicked out or whatever, a student can come in here and report that, and we can get somebody in tech support into that room. So we kind of have a fire drill system figured out for that. You can also leave a message as like a tech ticket. And then the other thing she mentioned that was on this website is our student handbook. So if you come to our website and click on current families, you're going to see a link to the student handbook, and you can open that. You'll also see links to our school calendar. So when you want to know when a good time to take vacation is or something, please take a look at the school calendar. And we do have ample breaks kind of throughout the year. So it's good to make note of those things. Our first one is this coming Monday. There's no school on Monday due to Labor Day. And then finally, the Kolbe portal, which I'm going to show you here in a minute. And that is a parent portal. Now, if you're in one of those funny states that doesn't recognize daylight savings time, we have had some issues with schedules showing appropriately. So if you think something looks awry, then it might be. You can go to tech support, and we're working on kind of nuance. Do the help center really quick. So Nicole mentioned this. This is you can actually access the help center from our main webpage. It's up here in the right, but this is what it looks like when you get there. And it has a lot of different different articles that might help you with navigating Adobe Connect or Schoology, or just other resources and that sort of thing. So you can just kind of click around and search based on what you're looking for. And sometimes, tech support will actually reference a particular link here. If you go in and ask a question, they'll be like, oh, we have a Help Center article on this, and they'll give you the link right to it. Okay, so that's the Help Center. I showed you the portal. I showed you the website. So now the big thing I wanted to show you was the Schoology parent account. Okay, so right now I am signed in as the parent. If you go to the top right, you should see all of your students listed on the right-hand side. And you can click to any of them. And when you do that, it will bring you to their page. Now, I want to point out here, you see this blue bar out here, up here. This is not actually your student's Schoology account. It is like a view-only access to your student's account, so they can't turn in things using this particular method. So you can't log in as the parent, switch to the view as the student, and have them turn in things. They have to be logged into their own account for that to work. So the first thing you'll notice here on the right, I want to point this out. We are, as Tony said, we got rid of that participation grade that we were doing. So we have switched to taking attendance. So over here on the right is where you'll see any attendance things. So if they were present, you won't see anything. You'll only see things if they were late or absent, or if the teacher made a comment. So for example, this student was present, which was the green check, and there's a little comment bubble here, and you can see the comment was great job. So it might be more particular than that. Our teachers will put things like, hey, I called on Robert and he didn't answer today, or he didn't participate in any of the polls, or that sort of thing. So even though we don't have points attached to participating now, there's still going to be expectations of engagement from our students. Okay, so somebody had asked about their sixth grader having multiple courses and trying to figure out what he has to do for each. First and foremost, always good to start training them to use an agenda, right? Or a planner. So we do sell those in the bookstore. We might be sold out of them. I don't know for sure. But so that when they get to the end of class, they write down, what the assignments are for the next week. But the cheat sheet version here is on the right-hand side, they will see anything that is upcoming that is due. Okay, so it will show here, you know, when things are due, what class it's for, and if you click on it, it'll click into that assignment. And then it'll show you down at the bottom here anything that was recently completed. There's also a calendar view on that. If you click the calendar, come on, calendar, there we go. So if you click the calendar, it will put everything together for you right there. Now, the cool thing is, this is one thing that I did with my kids at one point, is that you can change the color. I think you can only do it when they're logged into their own account, but you can change the color. So like all of French shows in purple, and all of religion shows in green or something like that, so that it can make it easier for them to interpret. But that's one place to see that. Let me go back to courses. Okay. So also, when you're viewing as your student, if you click on courses at the top, you are able to go into a read-only version of any of their courses. So for example, let me go into ancient Greek literature. If you go straight into there, as Tony was describing, our teachers are now doing task lists. So you will be able to see just kind of a summary of what those courses are requiring for the week. But it also helps so you can use the upcoming feed as well to see what that is. And right now this course doesn't have anything in the upcoming feed. Let me see if I can find one that does, just so you can see it. So yeah, you can see the upcoming feed here for this particular class is right here. You can click on the calendar kind of in the same way to see what's going on there. And you will see variations with our teachers on, like, you know, what their pages look like. You know, some of them have a very creative flair to them, and some of them are a little more just the facts, ma'am, you know, as we all have different personalities like that. If I were teaching a course, I would need somebody to design me the creative thing, because I like how it looks, but I'm really terrible at designing these things. So, but some of our teachers have gotten very good at it. All right, so back to this. Okay, so then another thing you can do, if you click on enrollments at the top, and there's a lot of different ways to get the same information. So sometimes you just need to get in and kind of click around and see what's there. But if you click on enrollments, you can kind of get a snapshot of what the grades are looking like for up until that point. When there's a comment bubble here, this is under attendance, that matches what I just showed you over here. It's this attendance bubble. But you could actually, you know, click into the course and click attendance, and then you would see there it is, present. Great job. And they basically do a tally of any absent or late things that happen. Okay. Let me see. Okay, next thing I want to show you is how to get overdue notifications and how to send yourself the weekly or daily digests. So you'll log into your teacher or into your parent account and then view as one of your students. Once you're viewing as one of your students, you're going to go to settings. And then when you're here at settings, you can click this tab, notifications. Okay. This is where you can set a time to receive an email digest of all of the doings of your students' Schoology account since the last digest. So if you do it daily, it'll just send you whatever's new from the previous day. If you do it weekly, it's going to send you the whole week. I do it weekly. I should probably do it daily, but right now I'm doing it weekly because I know I won't read it every day. I wish I could do it like twice a week, but they don't have that option, so that's fine. Oh, maybe they do. No, they don't. Okay. So you can set your own day and time. So think about when it is that it's a good time for you to receive an email where you're going to really dive deep into what your kids' stuff has been, what they've been doing in Schoology. Okay, so there's that piece, and I'm going to show you what the daily or what the digests look like in just a moment, but I want to show you one more thing, and that's the overdue submissions email. This you want to have turned on for most of your children. If anything, it's at least an FYI. But when they have something that they did not turn in on time, you will get an automatic email notification from Schoology that says it was overdue. Okay, so on to the digest. So this is an example of the daily digest. I keep calling it daily. It's weekly for me, but it could be daily for you. But it will give you a summary of all of the assignments and attendance. And of course, my eye goes to this F. What's happening there? I do want to say one more thing is that a lot of times with some of the assessments that our students are taking, the students, it will be auto graded by the quit, by Schoology itself. And so the teacher has to go back in and override some of what that teacher or what Schoology has done to auto grade. So don't initially freak out when you see, an F. I mean, it could be a legit F. But it's always good to click into something and just see, okay, what happened? Oh, okay, they just haven't finished grading this yet. So it's one of those weird, quirky nuances of Schoology. But you'll see in the same idea that you have attendance on the side. So here you see that this student was late once, and there's one comment here. So unfortunately, the comment doesn't show, which is, I really wish it would, but you can click right into that course. All of these are hyperlinked, so it'll take you right into the course. So you can investigate that. Of course, you can just see it from your parent overview as well. It'll list if there's any overdue submissions and all of the upcoming things that are happening. So assignments, that sort of thing. And it will list all of your children and all of the things they're doing in Schoology. So if they end up being in clubs and all that sort of thing, you're going to see a little bit of chatter here and there as they do things. Okay, so that's the digest. All right, let me just make sure I grabbed everything. Okay, last thing. The last thing is showing you all how to get in touch with other parents. So the way that we do Schoology, or the way that we allow our students to interact with each other is they basically have to get parent permission to exchange emails. So they're not allowed to put emails in like in their chat box in the classrooms. But our teachers, but they are allowed to share their parent names. So they could say, okay, my mom's name is Megan Lengel. Can you go find her in the directory? So all you're going to do is come up here to the little envelope box. Now, parents are really the only people that have the email messaging capability. So we have it turned off for students. Parents cannot use Schoology messaging to message faculty. You can email them though anytime. It's kind of a clunky messaging system. So we just don't really use it, but it's great for this purpose. So all you're going to do is click a new message and then you can type the parent that you're looking for. So let's see if it brings me up. That's probably Mrs. Lengel. It might not let me. There we go. So somebody pops up and then all you do is put their name in. It's not going to let me because I'm a super admin. It doesn't let you message super admins. But then you can put, student wants to connect, and then you can just introduce yourself and say, hey, I'm the mom of so-and-so, and my child really wants to connect with yours. Can I get their Kolbe email address? The one thing that's nice about using the Kolbe email addresses is that all of those stay in-house. The problem is once you give them, email access, like they can say anything to their friends, they could give them their Gmail account, and then all of a sudden they're chatting in Gmail. Once it goes out of Kolbe's, we do our best to keep it, so that you're the parent and you're giving that permission, that push-pull. But once it goes out of Kolbe's, infrastructure, we can't really monitor it anymore. And we don't really monitor student emails, but we have the ability to if we want to. Okay, so I think that's all I have. I'm going to stop sharing. And then Everett, can you reshare the PowerPoint really quick? I think I just have like 2 or 3 more slides on there. And are there any questions that I need to answer? Oh, I didn't show the Schoology course. Do you want me to go back and do that? I'll do it at the end of this presentation for anybody that wants to see the orientation course for 3.5. Okay, so parent Facebook groups. We have grade level Facebook groups that we have parent moderators in there. I'm going to throw a link in with a list of all those into the chat box here in a minute. I'm going to grab that. But they're basically set up by senior graduating class. So, the class of 2025 is this year's 11th grade class. And so parents can go in there and interact with each other. And it may not just be parents with online students. There may be parents with homeschool students as well. So oh, thank you. Nicole just put that in there. I appreciate that. Okay, the next I think is clubs. Everett, if you want to switch to that one. So there are a couple clubs that are open right now. And if you guys look at my Friday memo, you'll see how to enroll in those. Basically, our service level clubs are all open right now. That's Spiritual Life, newsletter, yearbook, and news show. So all of those are open for students to join as of this moment. Some of them do have grade level restrictions. So only high schoolers are allowed in yearbook and news show. But Spiritual Life, we do have a K-5 one and a 6-12 club for that. And then opening hopefully towards the end of next week will be registrations for any of our other clubs, kind of our fun clubs, I'll call them. But we've got, baking, music, Lego club for elementary. In middle school, we've got coding, we've got all the language clubs, chess, art history. High school has a lot of those similar ones. Yearbook, we have a travel club this year, culinary science, all that. So a lot of fun things. And then just some other events just to take note of that we have that we do in our community. We have a Sounds of the Season concert. That's something our students audition for. And then again, in the spring, we have a Colby's Got Talent program, which is also an audition. Our Spiritual Life Club hosts a lot of school-wide prayer opportunities. Every Thursday, they'll do a rosary. And then they usually kick our news show off with a gospel reflection on Mondays. And there's also a lot of, there'll be sporadic things if there's a feast day or something like that. They also will have our language clubs in to do the rosary in either French, Spanish, or Latin. So that's really fun. Okay. Next slide. I think the next slide is just making sure you all know that we have an in-person graduation. So even if your oldest is only in kindergarten, you can keep it in the back of your mind that there is an in-person graduation for our seniors. This coming year, it will be Wednesday, May 22nd and Thursday, May 23rd. It hasn't quite been announced yet, but we're hoping to have a good speaker and a dinner the evening before. We still have some details to come, hope to have that out to everybody towards the end of September. But it's such an amazing event to be able to meet some of those kids in person. And you don't have to be a senior to come to it. So we have had plenty of students come to graduation, even if they don't have a sibling graduating that year and they just want to come hang out. It's in Atlanta, Georgia this year. I didn't mention that. All right, I think that's all that we have. I think the last slide is just a Q&A. And happy to answer any questions. Nicole has a question. Go ahead.
There were two questions in our Q&A box that I thought you could answer on Mic for Us. So one parent asked, as far as once the students exchange emails and they're chatting using their Colby email address, are they able to chat about random things or just school related things? And then the secondary question is, does something like Microsoft Family work with the 365 account to monitor student emails?
That's a good question, the Microsoft Family. Let me look into that. I would think so, that it would work fine with that. But let me double check. I'm going to make a note of that. Microsoft Family. Yeah, once the students have emails, we don't really regulate what they're saying. So that would be up to you as a parent, whether or not you want to restrict it to school only questions. I think technically our email policy says that it should be constrained to that, but we don't police that, So at that point, you do get copies of every Colby email that your student sends. So if your student sends an email, I'm sorry, not the ones that they send, you get an email forward of any email that comes to your student's inbox. So if somebody writes your child an email, you are going to get a copy. So you may want to dissuade them from talking about anything other than school-related things and leave the fun stuff for their personal email addresses, depending on what your own family policies are. So, and I will mention that my husband and I did a webinar on cyber security and that sort of things, different ways to help protect your household from, the perils of the internet. So I will go find that and I can link that in here as well. It's what was one of the Kolbe Cast podcasts. So it has some ideas in there for using different tools such as like Circle, if you've heard of that. It's a way to regulate the amount of time they spend chatting and all that kind of thing. It's not perfect though, I will tell you. And one of my kids is particularly computer savvy. So if they're going to find a hole, they will, and they want to find a hole, they'll find it. But it's always interesting. He'll be like, hey, I found that I could get around this. Like he usually tells me, maybe not always, but it's not a perfect seatbelt, I guess. You still have to have some, you need to dip in and check on them once in a while for sure. It's a good question. Erica asked, is there a way to see future assignment dates beyond the upcoming week? Also, can parents see the lesson plans so I know exactly what the kids are learning in live class and can determine what things I want to reinforce or practice with them? So our teachers will usually post about a week out what is coming up, and you'll find that our teachers follow a pattern. So there's not going to be any surprises most of the time on from week to week. Like there's going to be the same general homework structure from week to week. And then usually they'll announce tests or big projects, a good deal earlier, like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, depending on what it is. So you'll know far in advance, okay, there's going to be a test, that week or something like that. We don't give out exact lesson plans for full courses just because with holidays and that sort of thing, it's really hard to predict exactly what week everything's going to be happening. But there should be a syllabus that's posted on each Schoology page for each course, and that can kind of give you an overview of what they'll be covering that year and kind of give you an emphasis. And another thing you could do is if you feel like your child's struggling in a particular area, email your teacher and be like, hey, they're really just not getting these writing assignments. Do you have any, hints or tips for me? That's always a good way to kind of figure out how you might help more as a parent partner. Good question. Somebody asked if we record the rosaries and assemblies. Yes, we do record all of them. And when I don't forget, I post the recordings in the Friday memo. We don't post the recordings of the rosary, but we do post the recordings of the assemblies and the new shows. So, April, we'll have to check into that. I thought they were all approved, so we must have just missed you. I'll make a note of that and we'll check it out. See if we can get you in there. Class of 2031 and 33. All right. Any other questions? You guys had some good questions. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I went ahead and put the podcast episode linked in the chat with Mrs. Langle and her husband on internet safety. It's called Digital Citizens.
Thanks. And I can, for those of you that want to stay, I can show the student orientation course or Nicole, if you prefer to do it, it's up to you. I think I'll go ahead and do it right now.
Yeah, go ahead and share it. I can talk through some of the pieces.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. All right, so there's a student orientation course for kindergarten through second grade and also third through fifth. They're mostly the same. We just get into a little bit more of academic integrity once you get to third, fourth, and fifth grade. So first thing you'll see, all of the supports and things that we've discussed are those buttons at the top. So making an appointment with your advisor, tech support, the calendar, supply lists, our help center, course change. So this course will be available to you all year. So if you're looking for something, you can always start here. Next, it just has the steps for onboarding. So the technology orientation is what you always want to complete before you get started. And then there's some more information on policies in the live orientation recording. But the parent orientation module is what's going to have a lot of documents and information that you can reference to better understand the elementary program in its entirety. So if you go to review important school documents right there, You'll see that there's the calendar, there's an article on parent partnership. So what that looks like for kindergarten through 5th grade. There's the handbook. There's also a list of what textbooks you'll need, so you can cross-check that, and there's supplies. And then again, more in that step 3, you'll see there's more articles on supporting your child. So there's actually a whole video, a walkthrough similar to what Mrs. Langle did today, but specific with elementary classes. So you can see what an elementary classroom looks like, where to find things. There's more articles on how to set your child up for success, and then that article about guiding them towards self-activities. So as Mr. Byarski mentioned, that's a big goal, but it looks different. You know, a 3rd grade's guidance towards self-activity is going to look different than an 11th grader. So it outlines how we kind of gradually release some of that responsibility off of the parent and onto the student. And there's some submission skills that you can revisit in our orientation course. And just a lot of helpful resources. So at any point in the year, you know, the help center, the tech support team are amazing for those issues. Your advisor is helpful for curriculum and other things, but this is a standing course that you can look at resources for if you haven't done so already.
I do have the other one, Nicole, I don't know if you want me to go over K2.
That's okay. They're so similar
Okay.
that as long as you log into one, you should have the information you need.
Awesome. All right. I will stop sharing. All right. Well, thank you everybody for being here. You are a great audience, and best of luck as you start the new school year.
Thank you.